Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today's exclusive live webinar, the second of our Hong Kong Foundation Forum series. My name is Kenny. I'm responsible for the economic development research at our Hong Kong Foundation and your MC for this event. A very warm welcome to all guests, members of our Hong Kong Foundations, fans from the media, join us. A quick reminder to all that there will be a 30-minute Q&A session after today's sharing. We will be taking questions submitted in written form in English or Chinese that will be randomly selected for our discussions. We are honored to have with us Professor Lawrence Lau, a renowned economic expert, to share his insight on how Hong Kong could combat against current economic downturn. I'm sure many of us are very familiar with Professor Lau. Professor Lau is Wolf and Kerr Landau Professor of Economics at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. From 2004 to 2010, he served as the president of CUHK. Currently, he is also an essential economic advisor in several committees, both at the national level and for the Hong Kong SAR government. May I now invite Professor Lau onto the stage to share his thoughts with us. Professor Lau, please.
Thank you very much, Kenny, Eva, Stephen, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure and an honor to be here today. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how to combat the economic downturn that we're experiencing in Hong Kong right at this moment. I have a PowerPoint which I will post on my webpage soon after today. Okay, you're welcome to download. First of all, we know that this last quarter, the Hong Kong economy has contracted, by 8.9%. Okay, and this is actually the third consecutive quarter that the Hong Kong economy contracted, and so we are officially in a recession. Okay, at the same time, the mainland of China has also announced that first quarter is contracted by 6.8%, and this is actually the first time the economy contracted. I think you really have to go back in the last 40 years, I think, is the first time it contracted. Okay, now the Hong Kong SAR government has projected that for the rest of this year, for the whole year, it would be somewhere between -4% and -7%. And I'm actually a little bit more pessimistic. I think it would be towards the lower end of this range for the rest of the year. In the meantime, we know that the Hong Kong standing as an international financial center has actually changed. I don't know whether you've read the press reports, but Hong Kong is now number 6. It's fallen from third place to 6th place, and it is now behind Tokyo, Singapore, and Shanghai, and then just ahead of Beijing. It's now but we need to understand what is happening to the underlying trends. I think that's important. First of all, the mainland economy has been undergoing a transformation from being export-driven to being mostly domestic demand-driven. I think that's very important to know. Secondly, we know that the mainland economy is no longer just the world's factory. It becomes the world's market. That's also a big transformation. Okay, and that really means that the mainland economy is mostly driven by its own domestic demand. Okay, and not by exports. Now, then you have to think, how does that affect Hong Kong? See, Hong Kong used to be a bridge, a conduit, a gateway to China, but now that China is not so export-driven, and you'll see in a minute that China is also not so dependent on foreign direct investment, then what is the role of Hong Kong? We need to redefine our role under these changed circumstances. Okay, now this chart is very interesting. You can see that the share of exports in China, in the Chinese economy, mainland economy, has fallen now to just above 20%. Okay, imports are roughly the same. And to give you some idea what this means, for every dollar that the China exports, value added in China, both direct and indirect together, is about 2/3, so about 66, 67 cents. Okay, so that really means that only about 13% of Chinese GDP today is generated by exports. Okay, that is the way to think about it. Okay, now this is the importance that how important foreign domestic investment is. FDI, foreign direct investment, it is to China. You can see that it was very important a long time ago at the peak, but it is now only about 3% of total Chinese domestic investment. That means even if FDI stops, it's not going to have an impact on. It's not going to have much an impact on the Chinese macroeconomy. Okay, so I think that's important to know. This also shows that Chinese outbound investment actually has also been declining. It reached a peak in 2016, but it's been declining. And I think we don't have 2020 is declined a lot in 2020. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that Hong Kong's role as a middleman, as a super connector, has largely disappear because of the change in circumstances. And we have to understand these change in circumstances. Now, this is actually quite interesting chart. This is, the red line actually measures the proportion of mainland Chinese trade that would come through Hong Kong. Okay, that's transshipped Hong Kong. At the peak, Hong Kong was responsible for 70% of Chinese exports. Think of it, 70% of all Chinese exports will come through Hong Kong. Nowadays, it's just slightly above 10%. Okay, the same is true of imports. 40% used to come through Hong Kong, and now only 10% comes through Hong Kong. All right, and this is a natural development as ports develop in China, and they have lower costs and so forth. That's really a natural development. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that there are tariffs and various other things, I think the amount of goods that would come through Hong Kong would be even less. Okay, there's transfer pricing, all sorts of things going on. Otherwise, there's really no reason for goods to be transshipped through Hong Kong. Okay. Now, it is inevitable that there will be economic, technological, and geopolitical competition between China and the U.S. All right, we know this already. They are the two largest economies in the world, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, there will be competition. It's inevitable, but the competition actually has intensified because of COVID-19. Okay, and we know that they are now blaming each other for the beginning, as the source of this epidemic. We won't talk about this today. I think eventually it's a scientific question that can be resolved. Okay. However, we have to understand that this is not likely to stop or to subside because it's election year in the U.S. I think it doesn't really matter Republican or Democratic. I think China will be blamed. Okay, and so you shouldn't expect that things will improve before the presidential election. Might not even improve after the presidential election, but it won't improve. So that's the new normal. Okay, but the social unrest in Hong Kong may also exacerbate the China-U.S. conflict. Okay, and I think it's unlikely to lead to anything positive outcome for either Hong Kong or its people. It can only damage confidence and lower expectations about the future. I think that is really a major barrier to our recovery, to our economic recovery, because if people do not have positive expectations about the future, As households, they won't consume. As businesses, they won't invest. And the result is continued recession. So I think that part is very, very important. Today, Hong Kong actually exports almost no goods, only services. Okay, and manufacturing, which has largely disappeared from Hong Kong, all right, it will never be coming back. Okay, think about it this way: even Dongguan, has been giving up light manufacturing. Things are moving to Southeast Asia, to Vietnam, to Bangladesh. If light manufacturing cannot return to Dongguan, how can it return to Hong Kong with a much higher cost structure? It's totally impossible. We really have to think about doing something else. Okay, we cannot go back to making shirts, making shoes, making toys. It's impractical, and it would give us only a very low level of standard of living to go back to doing things like that. But I think, so this actually gives you a good sense of what's happening. This is export to the world percent of GDP for Hong Kong. The green line is interesting. Green line is domestic exports. See, Hong Kong used to actually generate a great deal of goods itself. Okay, many years ago, over 30%, right? But now it's close to zero. You can see the green line. Now, the blue line is total exports of goods only, and you can see that it is actually now almost totally re-exports. That is, Hong Kong doesn't produce any goods anymore. Whatever export of goods that we have is re-exports of goods produced in the mainland. Okay, and up the top red line is exports of services. Okay, and that is mostly tourism and perhaps some other things, but mostly tourism and travel would be export of services. Okay. Now, this is the same story. Exports to the U.S., you can see it actually tells the same story, that no goods, no manufactured products are being exported. But at the same time, Hong Kong's dependence on the mainland has actually is rising. Okay. Now, I mentioned somewhere in the earlier chart that we are still getting our drinking water from China, and this is since the mid-60s. Okay, but this chart shows you that exports or imports from the to and from the mainland, as a percent of Hong Kong exports and imports, has been rising, and it's now over 50-60%. Okay, and that's a very high degree of dependence. This is comparison of the stock markets, and the red line is Shanghai plus Shenzhen, and the sort of blue line down below is Hong Kong. So in terms of market capitalization, okay, Hong Kong's market is actually not as large as the Shanghai and Shenzhen markets combined. Okay, and this is a very natural reason. Okay, because there are more enterprises across the border, and there's more buying power across the border. So this is actually a natural thing to happen, and that's really why the Shanghai-Hong Kong Connect and the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Connect has been helpful to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, because there is the buying power across the border. But you can see that the Hong Kong Stock Exchange actually is also fairly heavily dependent on mainland enterprises. Okay, and I think there is now actually a trend, beginning to be a trend, that mainland enterprises that are not listed in Shanghai, listed in Hong Kong, that they might begin to migrate back to Shanghai for a second listing. And this could be due purely to commercial reasons, because the PE is higher in Shanghai, right? So if you are a business owner, you say, hey, maybe I should list up north, right? And the buying power is there, and no matter what you think, the Shanghai Connect and the Shenzhen Connect actually is not that convenient, right, for the investors from mainland itself. Okay. Now, I want to turn my attention to the mitigation measures that the Hong Kong SAR government has introduced. One of the things is that there would be a cash payout of $10,000 for every one of us, okay, which is good, okay, because I think that that would, for many households, it would ease the cash flow, it would increase employment. But I don't think, because it's a one-off thing, I don't think it will permanently change the spending habits. In fact, savings rate is likely to go up rather than come down in the next months. And one thing that we observe, we all know that Americans never save, right? But even in the last couple of months, we've seen that the savings rate has gone up in the US quite a bit, okay? Because looking at the future, if you are living in the US, you become an employee and so forth, what do? You're not going to spend. You might get a check soon, maybe from the US Treasury. You're not going to spend it all, right? You're going to save part of it, okay? And I think that's what's going to happen. But regardless, I think it's not a bad idea. I think the government is getting ready to launch an employment subsidy scheme called ESS, which means that employers will be given some kind of subsidy if they commit, not to lay off any workers, and then they will get the benefit for 6 months, okay? Which I think is a good thing, all right? Because that is what is needed, especially since Hong Kong doesn't have unemployment insurance, okay? In the U.S., you hear about, there are now more than 30 million people getting unemployment checks, okay, because they have unemployment insurance. We don't, okay? So I think it's good that we have ESS to help these people tie over for a while, okay? I think they will be helpful in keeping the economy afloat amidst falling GDP and rising unemployment, but they won't be enough to turn the economy around. That's why I use the word afloat. Okay, it's not going to help coming back. But a lot of people worry about whether Hong Kong can afford it. Okay, and I've done some very simple calculation. I think everybody knows that eventually all of these measures together will cost about 300 billion Hong Kong dollars. Okay, and that would be about a deficit equal to 10% of the Hong Kong GDP, annual GDP. All right, but this is very high by Hong Kong standards, even by international standards. But I think we can afford it. Hong Kong can afford it. So first thing is, don't worry about this. You can afford it because Hong Kong still has accumulated surplus about 1 trillion Hong Kong dollars. So this is about 1/3, less than 1/3 of it. So in principle, we can run this deficit for 3 years and still don't need to borrow. Okay, so I think that's so. Put your mind at ease that this is okay, and I think that I think it's justified at this time to spend that kind of money. Okay, and so I think it's all right. Now we are actually not in too bad a shape because you look at the U.S. They are doing the same thing. Okay, more or less, okay, passing money out and giving money to corporations and so forth. For the U.S., the projected deficit for this year is going to be 18% of GDP. 18%, okay, it's a huge number. And the U.S. has a public debt already of over 100% of GDP, right? So this will by the end of the year, it will make the public debt about 120% of GDP. All right. Now, Japan also has a deficit. I think this year it will have a deficit equal to 5.8% of GDP. But Japan already has a public debt of more than 250% of GDP. Right? Okay, huge amount. All right. So the reason I say this, all of this, is that don't worry, okay? We can do it, and it's not going to kill us, all right? But moreover, we have almost no public debt, okay? So we have a lot of ample borrowing capacity, Okay, so if we need to, we can borrow, but we don't need to. All right. So the first thing is that don't worry whether we can afford it. We can afford it, and we should spend the money as long as it's well spent. All right. Don't worry about. So I actually fully support the government mitigation measures, but I do want to point out that these measures alone, I want to emphasize, these measures alone are not sufficient to turn the economy around. Okay, that we have to know, because you want to ask the question, what's going to happen in 6 months when the ESS runs out? All right. You talk about ESS, okay, I commit not to lay off anyone. But take a company like Cathay Pacific and Cathay Dragon. They have canceled, apparently, more than 95% of their flights worldwide. Okay, now how can they keep paying its employees, okay, when there's really nothing to do, literally nothing to do, right? And you cannot keep on. I mean, maybe with government help you can do it for 6 months, but what happens after 6 months, right? So it's a temporary measure keeping us afloat, but that is actually not enough, all right? So that's something important to remember. Now, I want to say that Hong Kong, with a linked exchange rate system, LERS, but more commonly known as the PAC, we have a fixed PAC, cannot have an independent monetary policy, all right, that we know. So unlike most other governments in the world, we are not free to print money, all right, which is actually a good thing. All right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a good thing that we cannot print money at will, all right. But that means we cannot do our quantitative easing, so Hong Kong can only use fiscal policy to stimulate the economy. Now, giving out money is fiscal policy. ESS is also fiscal policy, but I want to say that public investment and public consumption are also part of fiscal policy. All right? Okay. I think we really cannot assume that the traditional service industries in Hong Kong, entertainment, food and beverages, retail, tourism and travel, that they will all come back after the COVID-19 epidemic. We cannot assume that. In fact, I think that is not going to be the case. The rest of the world is still in recession. Tourism and travel is not going to come back anytime soon. Retail, which depends quite a great deal on tourism, is also going to be very difficult. So while the mainland economy, I think, will recover fairly quickly, okay, and there will be additional economic stimulus, and I believe that with the additional stimulus, that China should be able to do around 5% for 2020 as a whole, okay? But let me say it's with additional economic stimulus, okay? If nothing is done, I think it would be around between 3 and 4, okay? But anyhow, but it's not important. The important thing is that even if it's just 5, 4, 3, I think mainland tourists and even students, they are unlikely to come back in large numbers in the short term, okay? Because of perceived unfriendliness and hostility to them among some segments of the Hong Kong population. You can't blame them, okay? But I think even Hong Kong residents themselves, they will be more careful and reserved in their spending, in their dining out and social gathering and so forth. And social distancing, I think we will continue to practice, okay? I think I probably won't shake anyone's hands for a long time, okay? And certainly no kissing and hugging, right? So it would continue for a while. So people would be very careful. And I think quite properly so. As long as we don't have a vaccine and we don't have a specific viral drug that would treat this particular virus, it's always better to be careful. Okay. So I think the other thing is we private fixed investment. Okay, if you are a business, I mean, just ask yourself, if you're the boss of a business in Hong Kong, are you going to commit large sums to invest today? No, you're going to wait, right? So what I'm trying to say is that if the government has to come in and make up the slack, this is what the government is for. And that's why we have to have public investment and public consumption, to keep up the aggregate demand, right? If you just leave it alone, they won't come back. They won't come back. Okay, all right. So Hong Kong has to think through and plan now as to what to do in 6 months. Okay, and I think increasing public investment and public consumption is the most likely option and the most viable option at this moment. But I think one has to remember that even before these public investments are implemented, the announcement per se, just the government saying we're going to do this, they would actually lift expectations, and which will also have to lift the rest of the economy. And they will do what the mitigation measures alone cannot do. That is, they will enhance public confidence and transform negative expectations of the future into positive ones. And that's what you need, is positive expectations going forward. Okay, now an economy is basically driven by public confidence and its expectations about the future. Okay, you really think about it, that's what is going to drive things. And there are two famous examples of powerful announcement effects and new policies. You probably still remember the Southern Inspection Tour of Mr. Deng Xiaoping. Okay, Chinese economy was very depressed in 1990, 91, and so forth. And the Southern Inspection Tour, all of a sudden, changed things, and the economy became alive all of a sudden. Okay. The other important example was in 2008, when China announced the 4 trillion yuan economic stimulus program that also overnight had a great effect. And that is really why, if the government can come out with a credible plan, a credible announcement of public investment, public consumption, that can turn things around. Okay. All right. Okay. I think in the near term, households and firms in Hong Kong must be assured that peace and harmony will be restored and law and order will be maintained. Okay, this is really the only way for expectations to turn positive. Okay, all right. Otherwise, I think whatever the government tries to do is just like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Okay, right. Right, so anyway, okay. Now, I need to go a little faster because time is up. Now, what are some potential new initiatives? First, I think that the government should accelerate investment projects already in the pipeline, such as the third runway and the reclamation and construction of an artificial island east of Lantau Island, and launch additional public housing projects. This is the slack period. You should do it, accelerate them. Secondly, I would suggest that government should facilitate the introduction of 5G mobile communication services in Hong Kong through the sponsorship and construction of a shared public network of 5G transmission towers. You see, in most countries, each firm, each service provider, will construct its own network of towers. But there's no reason for them to it's duplicative and wasteful. So if the government can do it and run it like a public utility, regulated public utility, it would be great for all the consumers in Hong Kong because it will lower costs. You would eliminate duplicative investment. The government can also take advantage of this to do some green investments. And I've been talking with Laura Cha for a long time. There are hundreds, literally, of government buildings, public buildings in Hong Kong. They are not energy efficient, okay? And they can be retrofitted to be energy efficient, right? Changing windows, converting to solar power, and doing various things. You can be converted and retrofitted. And if you retrofit, actually, you come out ahead. Why? Because there's an initial capital cost, but then you benefit almost forever, right, for the life of the building. So if you discount it, you actually come out ahead. It's a good investment. This is a time to do it. It's something that Hong Kong can do and would create demand and employment. The other thing I was thinking about is that you can also make a building healthy. What do I mean by making a building healthy? You can make a building that would have automated doors, so I don't have to pull the handle, right? And you could have automated temperature fever detection, but you can also have voice-activated lifts, right? I want to go to 19th floor, right? 19th floor. So that actually would eliminate the necessity of contact with physical things, because I think a lot of the infection can actually come from everybody, touching the same door handle or pressing the same elevator button. I think the last time when SARS happened in Hong Kong, that's exactly what happened, is that people get infected in the Metropolitan Hotel because they share the elevator. Okay, all right. Now, the other thing that we can do is to augment the public health infrastructure. Take advantage of this downturn to build more hospitals, to build more elderly care homes and so forth that would meet the exacting standards, public health standards. This is the time to do it, and maybe expand medical school and nursing schools. We know we need more doctors. People are getting older and older. We need more doctors. We need more nurses. This is the time to do that. Increasing supply of land for residential use. I think you are in the forefront of this. And I think one is reclamation, we don't talk about. The second thing I want to propose is the redevelopment of the Kwai Chung container terminals. Because now, we don't need it anymore. And there's terminals in Yantian, which is very close by. And it's basically owned by the same people, right? So they are not going to be hurt by this. So I think that is something that can be done. And I actually have been advocating taking a very small part of country parks and green belts. Okay, this is going to make me unpopular, but taking a very small percentage and for residential use, I think we should do that, because Hong Kong actually only uses 7% of our land area for residential use, and less than a quarter of our land area would be developed. It's very, very low. We have to do something about housing. We need to enhance Hong Kong's status as an international financial center, and there are various things we can do. I think green bonds is one of them. We can establish ourselves to be the center for the issuance and trading of green bonds. There's a huge market for it. Okay, we can start with the GPA. Promoting owner-occupied housing. I know I'm going over a little bit, but let me have a couple more minutes. What I'm saying here is the following, is that I've been advocating for years that we should have long-term fixed-rate mortgages. Okay, why? Because a long-term mortgage will reduce your monthly payments enormously. A 35-year mortgage, you pay only half of what you have to pay on a 15-year mortgage. Right? Secondly, if you have a fixed rate, you eliminate the interest rate risk, okay? Because interest rate will go up and down. Now it's down, but there are times that it would be up. And if you have fixed rate, you eliminate the risk. But in order to do that, the government has to play an active role, because no commercial bank has long-term deposits at fixed rate that they can finance these long-term mortgages. only the government can issue bonds at a fixed rate for 35 years and then use the proceeds to buy qualified mortgages, also fixed rate and mortgages. Now is really a great time, okay? And because long-term rates are extremely low today, okay? Hong Kong can probably borrow at 1.5%, and mortgage corp doesn't have to make money, so it can actually relent the money. You can buy mortgages at, let's say, 1.75%, right, or at most 2%, and it can give the originating banks a service fee for continuing to service the mortgage, right? So I think everybody ought to be happy if we have this, and this will open up enormously affordability of housing. And if you already have a mortgage, you can refinance, and you will actually get cash in your pocket if you refinance. Not only your cash flow improves, but you can actually get some money back from the bank. Okay, all right. Now, okay, then we need to create jobs that cannot move away, but I think I'm running out of time. But at that, let me just mention a few things. R&D and venture capital hub. This is something we need to do. In order to do this, we need to become also a graduate education hub. You cannot run an R&D without a good graduate education. We know Silicon Valley and Route 128, they're all built around great universities. And we can do the same. We could also do top-notch healthcare and reinsurance. So let me conclude that there are many things that Hong Kong can and should do. The government can augment domestic aggregate demand by undertaking public investment and other measures. I've given lots of examples above. Hong Kong should take advantage of this crisis to map out a vision for Hong Kong's future within the framework of one country, two systems. It's time for the government to help the public by providing answers to the following questions. What should Hong Kong be like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? We need a vision of the future, right? It's not planning, but we do need to have a vision. Positive non-interventionism, okay, is really a clever excuse, very clever excuse for doing nothing. It is not a viable strategy in a rapidly changing world. Okay, I think the British invented it just so that they didn't have to do anything, right? Okay, nurturing recruitment and retention of human capital is critical for Hong Kong's long-term future. Let me stop here and take some questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Lau, for the inspiring talk. Would you please remain on stage? We have collected many questions from our audience throughout the talk. The first question is from the South China Morning Post.
Okay.
What should the government do to remove the political hurdle for a faster economic recovery? Professor Lau, please.
I actually don't know what the questioner meant by political hurdle. I really don't know. But I think the government, like I said, the restoration of law and order is paramount. Okay, if you cannot maintain peace and harmony, very few people are going to invest or to consume. So that I think that's essential.
Okay. Our next question is in Chinese, so we'll show the English translation on the screen. 我哋下一條問題係嚟自 HK01嘅。香港經濟唔再依賴出口業啦，傳統金融支柱嘅增長亦都有限喎。咁應該着力發展啲咩嘅支柱呢？如果美國大選特朗普連任成功嘅時候，中美關係喺預期繼續向差，咁近日嘅情況反映之下呢，香港社會矛盾有機會進一步惡化，香港嘅經濟前景又會係點呢？
我諗呢個問題問得好好。我啱啱都講過，我哋唔可以再靠出口 亦唔可以再靠外邊啲人嚟點樣幫我哋，係嘛？但係咧，我覺得香港當然金融市場可以繼續發展，係嘛？作為國際金融中心，呢個可以繼續發展。不過我覺得最緊要咧就係話應該將香港咧培養成一個研發嘅中心 R&D Centre， 同埋呢個 Venture Capital 風險投資嘅中心。我成日都講過，香港同深圳合埋，其實咧就係可以等於咧同美國嘅嗰個 Silicon Valley 美國硅谷同埋呢個Nasdaq 聯合起上嚟係一樣咁好嘅。所以我哋應該係做呢樣嘢。咁做呢樣嘢最緊要係咩咧？就係要一個廣大嘅市場。你諗下點解美國做呢個風險投資做得咁成功？其實佢有好多失敗嘅，但係我哋淨係睇到啲成功嘅。但係佢成功咧，就因為咧佢有個好廣大嘅市場。佢只要有一樣嘢做成功，佢有市場夠啦。咁香港係做唔到嘅。香港要做咧，就仲係要靠大灣區嘅市場，要靠全中國嘅市場。我哋大家睇得到嘅大疆DJI 咁成功佢喺香港開始起源地喺香港，但係佢最後都係要靠喺大陸生產大陸係佢市場。而家全球佢係佔有率市場佔有率最高嘅，但係冇大陸呢個市場，我諗佢未必做得成功嘅。
Okay. Thank you, Professor. Our next question is also from the South China Morning Post. How should retailers and the F&B industry adjust to the pandemic and boost the sales? What is your outlook for the local tourism industry given a weak global aviation industry?
I think the important thing about the food and beverage industry is that people have to feel comfortable about going out. Okay, I mean that's the key. Is that if people don't feel comfortable going out, it's no use. You can have a Michelin 3-star restaurant. People are not going to come out, right? So I think that is the key, is to make it safe and so people feel comfortable about going out, all right? And that will take a little while to get back there. And we all hope that the social unrest will not start up again, at least not to the same degree, all right? Because I think that's essential. And the same has to do with tourism, right? People come to Hong Kong, they come to enjoy themselves. They want to buy things, and if they have to avoid gasoline bombs, they're not going to come. There are plenty of places in the world that they can go, right? So I think that is basically what we have to do.
Okay, thank you, Professor Lau. Our next question is from our audience. Professor Lau, whilst I agree that conventionally light duty manufacturing will never come back to Hong Kong, would there be any opportunity and benefit, social, economic, or inclusive, if Hong Kong could embark on new patent and innovative manufacturing of selective products that has a sustainable local demand? For example, the population-wide need for consumables arising from the pandemic.
I think if you have automated manufacturing, maybe it would work. But you really should think through, that is, why do you confine yourself to a market of a maximum 7.5 million people? Okay, let's say you discover a new process for making masks, right? So you have said, I'm just going to sell in Hong Kong. Why? Right? If you can sell 100 times more. If you sell to the mainland, you can probably sell 1,000 times more if you sell to the rest of the world. Why would you do something and restrict yourself to Hong Kong? Right?
Okay.
I don't know why.
Thank you, Professor. Our next question is also in Chinese, so we'll show the English translation on the screen. 我哋下一條問題嚟自 Standard 嘅，咁其實佢有3個問題啦，咁我就一個一個問啦。 劉教授咧先前預計中國經濟咧係可以保五嘅，咁而家係咪仍然可以維持呢個睇法咧？
我一路都講我話咧，如果有刺激經濟方案應該可以做到五嘅所以我都就話，都應該係可以保五嘅但係有冇刺激方案而家仲未睇得到我諗應該會有嘅。
咁即係劉教授都仲係保持一個樂觀。咁第二條問題咧，其實佢就係問香港嘅經濟咧喺疫情過後咧，係咪好似好難好似沙士咁樣之後出現 V 型嘅反彈咧？
我諗咁樣 SARS actually 咧就係嗰陣時咧 SARS 嘅影響咧只係一個疫情啫，冇其他嘅因素喺度咁同時你諗下咧，其實 SARS 嗰陣時咧，香港回復咧，其實一個好重要嘅原因咧，其實咧係自由行大家可能唔記得咗啦。嗰陣時其實咧，據我了解啦其實係我哋要求呢個中央政府開放自由行，佢哋係有啲咁多唔願意做嘅真係嘅。佢話得唔得㗎？會唔會出事㗎？即係佢係唔係咁想做嘅嗰陣時。最之係做咗，最之係成功係嘛？咁而家咧，老實講，疫情過咗之後如果你係住喺大灣區你會唔會過嚟啊？係咪？即係你要咁樣諗啊嘛！即係你 always 我哋做人咧，要睇下將自己擺喺人哋嗰度即係 if I were this person, what would I do？我有個細佬哥我會唔會帶佢嚟香港咧？即係最近有人問我呢個 about 海洋公園，咁我第一我就話海洋公園應唔應該繼續做咧？係一個商業嘅決定政府可以幫佢。你話 OK， 政府話每年要幫佢5億10億，我都冇問題嘅。但係你要有個計劃，要睇得到，要幫到幾時，係咪值得幫，但係你要幫到幾時？我唔可以，政府唔可能幫佢一世即係呢個係要咁，其實係一個商業決定嚟嘅所以就係咁樣啦。咁咧，你話你有個細佬哥，你住喺嗰度，你成日嚟香港啊？我聽見話喺珠海附近係嘛，都有個新海洋公園係嘛？咁佢話我情願帶佢去嗰度啦，係嘛？即係大家要睇一睇呢啲嘢。
好，唔該晒劉教授。咁 The Standard 咧第三部分問題咧就係話全球印銀紙啦，特別係美國咁樣，咁擔唔擔心貨幣貶值咧？資產好似樓價咁會唔會上漲咧？咁另外未來會唔會有 Stagflation 咧？
我諗咧遲早都有問題嘅，遲早都有問題嘅。我講俾你聽咧，其實一個好簡單嘅道理就係點咧？錢咧印得越嚟越多啦。錢係要追住買嘢嘅但係買咩嘢咧就有兩樣嘅，一個係商品，一個係資產如果啲錢冚啦走去買商品咧，商品啲價格就會升啦，就會有通脹啦。但係咧最近呢幾年咧係好多錢流咗出嚟，而家最近係更多添，但係佢哋冇去買商品佢哋去買資產所以你睇話所有資產都上升嘅因為低息啊嘛，係嘛？你大家都計過條數息口低嗰陣時，資產就會上升。而家息口基本上係0，甚至係負嘅所以我借到錢嘅人咪快脆啲去借多啲去買啲資產啦所以而家嗰個通脹咧唔係喺商品嗰度，係喺資產嗰度你明我意思啊？但係講唔定嘅喎，資產我而家我自己我都覺得係咪高咗啲 係嘛？總有一日大家突然間會覺得哇太高咁就會落翻嚟㗎啦。咁你嗰啲錢佢唔買資產嘅時，佢走去買商品啦，咁咪會有通脹咯。所以老實講啦，今年又唔會嘅。過一兩年之後，都有啲外國嘅經濟學者，佢都擔心會有 stagflation。你又可能未聽過呢個字，stagflation 叫滯脹，即係經濟又唔好，但係通貨膨脹又高。即係我哋經歷過嘅 stagflation。如果你哋太後生，未經歷過試過嘅80年嗰陣時咧，就真係 stagflation 都唔係冇可能嘅。但係有啲後遺症嘅，唔係話咁容易就咁印咁多會冇事。香港嘅好處我啱啱講咧，就係話香港好彩，我哋唔印得。點解唔印得咧？因為我哋有個限制，你要出咁多港紙咧，要有翻咁多美金，係嘛？咁啊冇辦法印，我哋印唔到美金啊。所以就冇得印，係咁啫嘛。咁 actually 係好事嚟嘅。
Okay, thank you, Professor. Our next question is from our audience. The Economist in its current edition argues that the COVID-19 pandemic may change many of our business practice for good. For example, people may need to rely far more on online transactions and travel far less than in the past. In the light of this, what will be the challenges and opportunities Hong Kong will face in the post-COVID-19 business environment?
我諗每一樣嘢都有好處有唔好處㗎，係嘛？即係我諗，我老實講俾你聽，我哋而家咧就喺屋企啦，成日都用 Deliveroo 仲有個叫 Food Panda， 佢哋生意好到不得了。我聽見話喺中國或者外邊仲有個叫 Grab 係嘛，都係做得好好嘅。所以咧，即係有人贏有人輸，呢個係絕對嘅。我諗我自己諗法咧就係咧，我哋而家我自己都1月到而家未出過，未離開過香港咁咧變咗發覺咧就係實在唔需要喎。唔係好需要喎，係嘛？即係用 Zoom、Microsoft Teams、WebEx OK 嘅喎，咁其實所以咧，我諗會有轉變嘅。我諗而家大家都諗住，喂，完咗之後，會唔會大家都仲要旅行咁多咧？我諗唔會，好多唔需要嘅旅行。都話唔好旅行啦，有人要叫你去開會，你話喂，我哋可唔可以用 Zoom 啊，或者用 WebEx 啊咁樣，因為大家都方便啊。我睇有一排先去，咁你另外你諗下 cruise ship 仲有冇人敢去坐？仲有冇人敢去坐？即係以前嗰個商業模型咧就係。即係船起到越大越好，4000人。而家你自己諗下，4000人咁你40個人你都會諗下去啫。4000人，喂，係咪多啲？係嘛？所以咧，我諗你講得啱嘅，咁好多嘢都會轉，未必翻到轉頭，所以而家咧航空公司好多間都開始破產飛機公司都可能開始唔得啦，因為波音已經停產啦，空中巴士區好似又停產啦，即係已經起好晒，冇人肯去收貨我諗呢個係一個會有好長遠嘅影響唔係好簡單嘅。
Thank you. Our next question is also from our audience. What do you think is the credibility threshold in the use of physical reserve, which now is about 30% of GDP, or 3 years of budget deficits of the size that we are now running? Beyond the credibility threshold, confidence in our currency system will be undermined.
I really don't think so. I try to explain that it's something that we can really afford. And we really should not make the mistake because there is a backing portfolio in the exchange fund. And the accumulated surplus is really not part of it. So I don't think it's undermining the confidence at all.
Okay. Our next question is also in Chinese. 下一條問題嚟自 Now TV 嘅。經濟方面咧，近期社會出現咗黃色經濟圈啦。咁劉教授作為經濟學家嘅時候咧，點樣去睇待呢個現象呢？
我諗 actually 所謂呢啲經濟圈咧，其實咧係自己畫咗一個限制咗自己，係嘛？即係你要做公開生意，點解你有啲人你唔中意你唔中意要佢啲生意啦，係嘛？咁樣我諗 actually 如果喺美國咧，佢哋會告你嘅嚇，因為呢個係好嚴重嘅歧視嚇會告你嘅。咁我覺得其實呢啲咧都唔係做生意嘅人諗出嚟嘅。做生意嘅人咧就唔會諗到呢啲嘢，佢就諗住我要開間餐館，我理你咩色入嚟，只要你係肯俾錢入嚟，咁啊入嚟咯，係嘛？唔會話你要邊種人先我先會招呼嘅，唔可能嘅呢啲。
唔該晒劉教授。我哋下一條嘅問題咧，都係嚟自中文嘅，係中評社嘅問題。疫情喺全球擴散至今啦，對環球經濟同埋資本市場咧產生巨大嘅衝擊。歐美嘅經濟嘅大幅嘅滑坡咧，等我哋見到未來香港經濟發展咧更加離唔開內地喎。咁為咗讓疫後嘅經濟盡快得以恢復啦，咁香港應該可以點樣更好咁融入國家嘅發展入面呢？
我諗你呢個咧就係就我啱啱講咧，就係我哋應該係點樣諗咧？就係應該我哋點樣喺大灣區能夠發揮到我哋嘅作用啊！咁我成日都講咧，其實咧喺大灣區裏邊咧，香港同深圳咧係最應該合作嘅啊，因為我哋各有各嘅好處，各有各嘅比較優勢啊！你話我哋發明咗啲嘢，有冇人識整啊？我哋製唔製造到啦？咁啊可能唔得但係去到深圳，大把人識整，係嘛？咁我哋係發明到啲比較上游嘅嘢咁佢哋會即刻做到出嚟，佢有成個供應鏈可以做到出嚟。香港做唔做得到咧？做唔到呢個老實話嚟嘅所以我哋嘅將來其實就係要同大灣區之內啲城市合作取長補短冇一個人可以做晒啲嘢嘅同時我哋嘅市場唔夠大你話真係搞黃色經濟圈，搞嚟搞去最多咪750萬人都變咗黃，都係咁啫嘛，做唔到咩㗎。
We will have time to read out one final question.
Okay.
Our final question is from Iman Lee. What new role would you suggest for Hong Kong if our middleman role for China is further weakened?
That's a very good question. See, that's why I actually go back to say that, first of all, we have to focus on what we need domestically. So public health facilities, green investments, and so forth, these are things we need. Okay, but more importantly, how can we play a role in the Greater Bay Area, right? And that's important. If we can start by floating green bonds, well, we can help Shenzhen to float green bonds in Hong Kong, right? Because you need a market, and the market is where everybody would come. So people who are interested in green investments, they would say, we can go to Hong Kong and buy green bonds, right? So that is really how we can leverage. And it's good, not just good for us, it's also good for Shenzhen, right? So, and we need technology for green buildings, Okay, and that we may have to go to the mainland, maybe have to go elsewhere to where we have the most advanced technology to make the green investments. So I think that is basically correct. We have to find a role for us that goes beyond being the middleman, because the middleman's role is over. Okay, neither side would need a middleman right now. Right? Okay, so we have to create a new role for ourselves. And I think that R&D is one way to do it, is that we want to go to the as far up as possible on the supply chain.
Thank you, Professor. It seems that our media and also our audience really want to ask some more questions. So maybe Professor Lau can also answer some question more. Thank you. Our next question is also in Chinese. 下一條係嚟自香港電台嘅問題。財赤咧深化加上咗社會最近發生嘅事件咧再升溫啦，咁會唔會令到香港嘅評級咧急劇被下調咧
？I really don't think so. We have no debt. I mean, how can people lower our rating if we have no debt? I mean, the rating really is based on our ability to repay our debt. Hong Kong has zero debt. If they have to lower anyone's rating, they should start with Japan. And then maybe the US, right? Not us. Right? Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so our next question is from our audience. There are many discussions that COVID-19 will change the supply chain in the future, reduce the reliance on China. What is your view on that? If you agree, how can Hong Kong pivot as a large part of our exports is from the mainland, as you point out?
That is a very good question. I have been saying this all along, even in the context of the trade war before the epidemic. Because you really think about it, it is about having a second source, right? Because we have globalization, and so we have supply chains and so forth. But what people really worried and should worry is that you wind up having just there's one chain that's a monopoly. There's one link in the chain that's a monopoly. Okay? I think that, I think that's why the US is actually very worried about Huawei. Okay? Because 5G is going to come, right? But Huawei occupies an important link in the chain, right? So the US is worried, so it's trying to do everything possible, right, to try to damage Huawei, to get rid of Huawei. I think Huawei is here to stay, okay? But what I'm trying to say is that I think in the future there will be two 5G systems, okay? One will be Huawei, one will be somebody else, right? But they will be interoperable. So if you have a 5G phone, you go to the US, you can still use it, and vice versa, right? But there will be two. And two basically means a second source. The second source. I think every businessman, if you really ask them, they would prefer to have a second source, right? Because second source protects you from many things. Not just a geopolitical dispute, protects you from the epidemic, from natural disasters, from earthquakes, tsunamis. Anything can happen, right? So you want a second source. In fact, everybody, except for the monopoly itself, everybody wants a second source. So I think it's healthy to have a second source, okay? And the pandemic basically proves to us that, yes, we do need a second source, okay? But a second source actually has many benefits, other benefits, right? Because once you have a second source, you're not subject to monopoly. right? And that's really why it's good to have both Boeing and Airbus, right? Think, if we only have Boeing today, we would still be flying the 737 MAX 8, right? Okay, so you need a second source. So I think we should really look at this from a positive way, and that is, this will usher in a period of second sources. And it can only be good for consumers, right? Because that gives you bargaining power.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is also in Chinese. 下一條問題嚟自香港電台嘅。市場預期失業率會不斷升啦。你預計今年樓市會唔會重現03年沙士嘅斷崖式下跌呢？至於負資產會唔會加劇急劇惡化呢？尤其受惠於放寬按保成數或者發展商提供嘅呼吸輕入市嘅買家呢，會唔會好容易出現負資產或者斷供而變成銀主盤呢？
我諗佢問我就不如去問下施永青先。咁因為但係咧，我覺得咧應該唔會學似嗰次斷崖式咁跌落嚟。點解咧？因為其實我哋嘅樓市咧，始終都係咧供應不足，需求過剩，到而家都係，所以唔會斷崖式咁落嘅。
Okay, really the last questions. Okay, this is a question from our audience. So, what is your suggestion to new 2020 graduate under this recession?
Well, you know, it's not a good time to be looking for a job. I think that's quite right. But I think that I would say that perhaps they ought to go to graduate school for another year or two. I think that would be good for them, right? And I think in this day and age, having more human capital is always good, right? Always better. Okay, it gives you a competitive edge. So I would say that that is be my advice. If you have to be on the job market, well, try not to be too choosy. I think that is I think that would be my advice. Try not to be too choosy, because I think you can learn on every job. There's always something to learn. It may not be a job you want to stay forever, okay? But doesn't matter, right? Because on every job, there are things that you can learn.
Thank you, Professor Lau, for answering so many questions for us. Please be seated. This concludes our Q&A sessions. Once again, thank you for sharing with us your valuable insights. With that, we shall end today's live webinar here. We look forward to your continued support for our Insight Forum series. Our next sessions on June 1st will feature Professor Li Zichui, President and founding member of the Hong Kong Academy of Science. Please stay tuned for more information on our Hong Kong Foundation's Facebook and the Public Policy Institute's 政策正察 Facebook page. Thank you all for your participation and have a good afternoon.